Good morning, Tiny House World. This is Damon from Trailer Made Custom Trailers. This morning we're seeing our friends up in Fort Collins, Colorado at Mitchcraft Tiny Homes. I'm going to check out one of the builds that they were pretty proud of and wanted us to come up and take a look at it. I'm going to walk inside here of this project that's going on. A few more tiny houses in there being built as we speak. And lo and behold, I see Mitch from Mitchcraft Tiny Houses. Hey man, how are you?
Hey, doing good.
So tell me what we're standing in. What size tiny house is this?
We're standing in a rather large tiny house. It's a 34 by 10 wide bumper pull tiny house with a 2-foot loft cantilever, giving it even more space. So total roof line's about 36 feet.
Wow.
Got 2 sleeping lofts, main level bedroom. It's designed for a family of 3, so they each have their own bedroom, plenty of space, big bathroom, big kitchen. So they basically wanted, per their request, to get as much living space, square footage wise, as they could for their family.
That's amazing.
So they're maxing it out for sure. So it's one of the larger ones we've done. But
this is am I mistaken? This is 10 feet wide?
10 wide, yep.
I'm gonna back up just a little bit. Would you mind standing close to that beam there?
Yeah, sure.
And I'm gonna kind of scale.
Yeah, hopefully you can tell. I mean, tons of room.
So Natalie and I just, for all of you tiny housers out there, we kind of an embarrassing thing to admit, but the first time we've ever spent the night in a tiny house was last weekend, and it was in one a little bit smaller than this, but it was wider than our standard 8.5 feet stuff that we typically call a tiny house. This is kind of bordering on what we would consider almost to be a park model based on square footage. And
I mean, and a 10 wide is a good kind of sweet spot for an overwidth trailer, right?
Absolutely. We've moved hundreds of 10 wides up and down the highways all over the country, and we haven't found them to be much more of a challenge than a standard 8.5 full width.
Professional haulers, they don't care if it's a 10 wide. They're totally used to stuff like this.
Absolutely.
My normal local transport guy does 12 wide sheds all the time, and towing a 10 wide is no big deal.
Right.
So
I'm looking around at here at the construction method. Can you tell me a little bit about what you guys have done here? Because I see some light gauge steel and some wood.
Yeah, we did the trailer made TM frame steel framing method. So it comes in a kit. It's all pre-cut, pre-drilled. All these holes are pre-drilled in the perfect spot. Walls are perfectly straight, plumb, square, you name it. So it goes up really quick. My crew, not even my full crew, but a few of us put up this entire really big structure in about a day and a half for the frame versus it would have taken us, 3 to 4 days with wood studs.
No kidding.
It's definitely a time saver. And you can put up a whole frame without a tape measure, which is pretty impressive.
That's been the idea all along. Yeah. My question for you is, a lot of businesses probably wouldn't even go down this path, but tell me about some of your challenges with framing out of steel, because I want the audience to hear it from somebody other than steel frame manufacturers. Sure. What can you expect? Because this is not, it is not simple in terms, you're still building a house. So there is a little bit of brain work involved. Can you kind of run down through us what are some of the things that you guys had to work through that we can learn from in the future?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Because I'm a carpenter by trade. All my guys are carpenters. We're not steel stud manufacturers. We're not commercial carpenters. We don't do drywall to steel studs every day. So this is it's a learning curve for us, although it's still within the realm of home building. I used to be a commercial steel stud framer, so I'm familiar with it. But in general, if you're not familiar with it, there's a learning curve as far as how to do everything beyond the steel frame.
Sure.
So if you're attaching your structural sheathing to the frame, there's a special gun, special fasteners you have to use. You can't just take out your sheathing nailer, pop, pop, pop. They do make one for steel though. So if I'm not mistaken, you actually did use the pinning system that we had discussed a little bit on social media in the past. And just for ease of kind of holding sheets in place, you put some screws in there to kind of hold it up, and instead of somebody standing there while the guy is coming by with the pinning gun. But
it works like a nail gun that you would see on a job site, but it is not a nail. Is
it
that
functions completely like a nail gun that any of you is used to using. So simply put it up, nail it, put it up, nail it. It's easier than you think it would be. It's easier than I thought it would be. So everything, working with steel, like I said, is a learning curve, but you can use special fasteners to make it easier. Otherwise, you'd be screwing every single time, which is an option.
And that's what a lot of people think is the only way to do it safely.
True. Yeah, it's true.
And that is steered people away from the obvious benefits otherwise of CFS framing. And for the audience, CFS is the acronym for cold formed steel. Mm-hmm. So what you see up here is CFS. That's all cold formed steel, even with the skylights framed. We did this in our CAD software with the customer's input in probably an hour or two, from scratch to ready to pull all of the studs and the tracks for this product, and have it delivered here to Mitchcraft for the professionals to complete the assembly. So the burning question is, I've got a couple of them. Did you use a screw gun, or did you use what we kind of tongue-in-cheek refer to as a nail when you assembled the sheathing to the outside of the frame?
Neither. That's the right answer. Technically, it's not a nail. So if you're thinking about putting a nail through this, and how's that going to hold the sheathing? Well, it's not a nail, so that's the wrong question. So
you gave me the right answer. So
yeah, I mean, if you could, I don't know if your phone would even do it. If you zoom in on that.
Let me see if I can get one in here right there. You can kind of see that it goes in almost like a screw.
Yeah,
but it goes in at such a high velocity and turns at such a high velocity that it actually welds the pin into the hole that it just drilled in the steel.
You can rest assured that it is designed literally exactly for this application. So I don't have any qualms using it. I mean, if professionals tell me you can use it, it's going to save you time, I'm all about the business of saving time, so it works for me. So
I'm all about lasting and hard to manage tools.
Yeah. So usually if customers are interested in a steel stud structure, but maybe they're not going to finish it out, maybe they're just buying a shell from us, there are some things to know about working with steel. So like I said before, it's a learning curve. It's not easy, not your everyday, home remodel type of situation.
It's still building a house.
It's building a house. You still got to use proper fasteners, proper techniques. But otherwise, it'll go just normally. And if you're not building the house and I'm building it, you don't have to worry about it.
Yeah. So if somebody else was building their own home and they had to make a decision between wood and CFS steel, what direction would you steer them in?
It's tough. I mean, we do all custom builds, so I don't necessarily steer people one way or the other. It's largely, well.
Let me rephrase the question then.
Yeah.
Would you try to discourage or encourage a DIYer using a TM Frame Systems kit and building their own home with it?
That's a better rephrasing. So if you're not comfortable building a structure that's going to move down the road and it's going to be your home and you want it to last forever, it's not a bad idea to hire a TrailerMate to get you a house frame that you don't have to worry about the engineering behind it. You don't have to worry if you're building it right, if your window rough openings are correct, if your headers will take the load. You don't have to worry about any of that. So if you're a DIYer, man, it's hard to even imagine because I'm not a DIYer. I know all this stuff, but if I knew nothing and someone was providing a service where they could get me an entire house frame that goes up like that, and then I could start worrying about all the things I want to worry about, like what kind of flooring am I doing?
Sure.
That's the way to do it. I mean, I don't discourage people from doing anything, but this is definitely an encouragement working with this system.
So you do it again?
Absolutely.
and just a couple of the talking points that I heard earlier that I want to make sure that anybody that watches this video hears loud and clear. This took a skeleton crew half the time even with that steep learning curve, as you explained,
Yep.
and we call it that too. We tell every customer about a CFS kit that the learning curve is very, very steep, but very, very short.
Absolutely.
The first 10 or 15 minutes of the project will really be kind of a baptism by fire, but beyond that, you're kind of in a rhythm and you're off to the races.
Yeah.
And the remaining 3 or 4 walls plus your loft and your roof could very likely take you the same amount of time to assemble as the first one did after you had to learn all of the tricks.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, all of my guys are skilled carpenters, so we can figure it out even if TrailerMate give us 0 instruction. But the fact that anyone can assemble something like this, and not only that, you can raise up your walls a lot easier because they weigh less. So you don't have to have 6 guys struggling to get a wall up, especially a 34-foot long wall.
This is a big wall.
It's a big wall, and it's all one wall. There's not multiple wall sections. So, you know, it was far less manpower for us to even erect it after it's assembled. And then, you know, you get detailed plans. Everything is printed. I mean, you could show them the printing on the studs themselves. Everything's labeled with diagrams. It's extremely easy. So you get the plans, you find all the pieces, you put A to B, B to C, C to D.
It's assemble by number.
Exactly. Everything's labeled. Pretty easy system.
Great, man.
Yeah.
Hey, tell everybody where we can find you and check out all your work.
Yeah, so Mitchcraft Tiny Homes is the name. MitchcraftTinyHomes.com. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, Mitchcraft Tiny Homes.
YouTube?
Tiny Homes. No, I don't have anything on YouTube yet.
One more time, what's the name of your outfit?
Mitchcraft Tiny Homes.
Mitch, thanks, man.
Fort Collins, Colorado.
Great to see you.
You too.